welcome all four of you here today. We've had a marvelous lunch supplied by Cecile Chasson again. Can't recommend her cooking highly enough. So today we're going to talk about something that's coming up real soon for all of us, and that's Christmas. And maybe some memories, some reflections on what Christmas was like when you were young, when you were less young. Yeah, Christmas presents, food, relatives, bad behavior, lumps of coal. But before we do that, I wonder if we could just take a minute and maybe we'll just go around and you can introduce yourselves. Elaine, why don't you start?
We're supposed to start with her.
Well, okay, I can start with Claire. Who wants to go first?
She's the experienced one.
Oh, well, my name is Claire Doyle, and I was born in the little village of Little Anns, and so my maiden name is Boudreau. Boudreau with a tuck. There are many Boudreaus, but I'm from the tuck line, and I'm Ison and Clara's daughter, and I have lots of really good memories of when I grew up as a child.
Okay, thanks, Claire. Do you want to go now?
I'm Elaine Boudreau now, was Elaine George, born and brought up in Ayrshire, and lots and lots of good memories. I don't know if I've just pushed the bad ones aside, but good memories of Christmas. Christmas is right to my core.
All right. And Dede.
Well, I'm Dede Boudreau. My maiden name is Johnson. I was brought up in British Columbia, and I've been here since 1977. So taken on all of the, what do you call them? Traditions and everything of Almaden. And I love it here, and all kinds of memories from BC and from here.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Ralph, how about you?
My name is Ralph Mauger. My parents were Lloyd and Jeanette Mauger. I have lots of memories of growing up in the 50s. And some in the 60s and 70s. If we're talking about the old times.
We'll test that.
50s and 60s, we'll say. Okay.
Okay. So, Christmas. Maybe we should start with, what's your favorite Christmas? What do you remember as, like, the best Christmas?
The best Christmas, like, personally?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, it has to be like when I had my own children, to watch them, like, with the great big smiles and everything at Christmas, because that, like Santa came, and I don't remember it as a child myself.
But you remember watching them.
Yeah, watching the kids.
Yeah.
That was special. Yep.
Yeah, being the engineer behind some magic is always fun, isn't it? Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
What about you,
And
Ralph?
it's the magic.
Oh, yeah, it is.
It is.
What about you, Ralph?
Yeah, I would have to say when my daughter was born, we had Christmas for her. But going back further, I can't pick one particular year because all of the years growing up, I have, nostalgic, fond memories about cutting Christmas trees, going into the woodlot and cutting a tree and dragging it home.
So was that a kind of constant element, was going out and cutting a tree for Christmas? Yeah.
We didn't have an artificial tree till 1964, I think, when we moved to Fort Erie, Ontario. We always went out and cut one off our woodlot.
We still don't have an artificial tree.
No, I don't
Always a real one.
I went through a phase.
Yeah.
When I was in the city, it was hard to get a
real
real one.
What about you, Elaine? You got a...
I remember as we would go on our Sunday drive, and I still don't know how he did it, but my father would drive, and we'd be driving through, going up to Germans Harbour, and he'd say, "There's our tree over there." So I'd say, "No, we want to pick one out this year." So after the first or second year of us picking one out, he'd say, "Okay, come here with me. Get out of the car, go over to the tree. Now do you know why you can't have that tree? It was probably 12 feet tall, but it looked so stately there.
Yeah.
And he just had a knack, like, and I used to say, well, just cut the bottom off it. No, it won't work.
Doesn't work.
Yeah.
So that was one of the fun things that we did. But watching them hiding things and like all of the kids in the family, this is when I was a kid, everybody was wondering who got what, and we didn't have a lot, we didn't waste anything. And Christmas Eve, when my brother would break it to it, like he had everything down pat, who had what and where it was hid. So, no, he kind of stole Santa Claus from us a little bit.
What about you, Claire?
All I can remember throughout all my years, even as a child, is like the smells of Christmas. Like, you know, the foods and the tree coming in, you know, we didn't decorate weeks before Christmas. I mean, everything happened, you know, Christmas Eve and a few days before Christmas. And so it was extraordinary. And, you know, every year, when in everybody's home, when you go and visit our home, that's what you smell. You smell the baked goods and you smell the greenery, and it's just the senses, you know, kind of come alive. That's carried right through in all my years. And I mean, we've had some really good Christmases, you know. One of my best Christmas was as a teenager, going to, as a grown-up. Well, I wasn't that grown up, but, you know, 15, you know.
You thought you were.
Oh, I was. They were mature. At 14, 15, you could carry your weight then.
Yeah.
And it was going to the mass, the midnight mass, and then being invited to somebody's house for a party afterwards, a gathering. And there was the rabbit stew or the rabbit pie and the meat pie and the food. I don't know where it came from. When I look back to see, you know, who did all this cooking, and all dozens of people in the house, you know, and you'd have music. People would bring their, you know, guitars and accordions and oh my gosh, that is what I remember. Some of the really great highlights of that time, you know. It was wonderful. Midnight Mass was very important for us as a community. And I don't know if it's Acadian or pretty well right across the board, but
I think for
you looked
people in the
forward.
Christian faith, you know,
You
midnight
looked
mass.
forward
yeah.
to that, you know, that midnight mass and then that gathering afterwards. It kind of completed that Christmas. You know, it was beautiful. Yeah.
I was brought up Protestant, and one year, because I wasn't great at school, I was sent to a convent for a year for my schooling.
This is what the Protestants do, right? They threaten their kids with a Catholic school.
I was one of them. Anyway, so I went to this private school for a year, and that's where I learned about the Catholic religion. And everybody was talking about, at Christmas time when we went home, talking about midnight mass. And I'd never been to one. I had no idea what it was all about. But I went home for Christmas and I talked my sister, my older sister, to come to midnight mass with me. And we were like, you know, like amazed at midnight mass. It was something else. And,
Yeah.
It's very special. Yeah.
Well, midnight mass, I mean, in the Anglican tradition and certainly in the Catholic tradition, I mean, I think you know, it's marked by an occasion of different hymns. There's a different liturgy. It's like it's a big
more upbeat too.
it's very upbeat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And everybody's happy.
And everybody's
Yes.
happy.
Nobody's complaining about being there. They're just happy to be there.
My mother used to say she was always happy by the time midnight mass came along because everything was done or it wasn't.
And
Yeah.
it didn't matter.
And there was nothing more you could do.
Yeah.
You'd go and you'd sing the hymns and then, you know, let the cards
Yes.
play as they would.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
So-
you'd go home with that singing.
Yeah,
You didn't just, it wasn't over. It still went home.
the music, yeah. yeah. So, I mean, all four of you talked about family at Christmas. Families tends to be important.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have memories of, particularly when you were young, of particular relatives that you enjoyed at Christmas?
I can remember the Christmas, and when you were saying about what Christmas stood out, it was the Christmas that my grandparents were there. Our family was all there, and we celebrate Christmas midnight mass and at night. And it's been very hard to convince the husbands to go along with that. But it's like, you don't have a choice. You can wait till tomorrow morning and miss it all, or you be here.
Join in.
But it's kind of like, I can remember Mom had her best friend from the States, and she came down with her two children. And I can remember having people in the house, like we always had company all evening, all afternoon, all day, but at night it was just us. And that's what was different at Christmas. You didn't know where you were going to be sleeping, but you were going to have a blanket and a pillow, and that was about it. And pretty much hasn't changed in our house.
Yeah.
First thing I did when we put the piece on the house is I said, okay, we ran out of money. There's no moldings around the windows or doors or anything. But I got in the van, took the seats out, went to Hawkesbury, and they had a Happy Harry's, and I bought doors. And I came home that day, and I says, what are you doing? I said, we got company coming for Christmas, and they're staying in that room, and I'll keep it neat and tidy. But the other rooms, they each wanted their own room. Well, it's starting today. Responsible for what's on the other side, I'm not. Right? So I had pretty shabby looking doors. He says, but some of the doorknobs are up there and some of them are down. That's because they wouldn't swing the right way if I put them the way they were supposed to be. But they shut. That's all that mattered. And again, that was a Christmas I remember because his brother and wife and child were over for our Christmas.
Nice.
And those are the things, it's the people.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you always, I can remember them, I can remember a couple coming over to play cards with Mom and Dad at the house. And everybody was around the table. I don't know if there was more food or cards at the table, but anyway, there was both. And we could hear, and one of the women at the end, you got a rat? Mom says, oh, no, that's just Willard. Well, she didn't know it, but we knew that Willard was in the attic, and he was between the floorboards, and he's caught there.
Oh my goodness.
So that night after everybody went home, she gave in and told them there was a rat. They went upstairs, it must have been 2 in the morning, and they cut the floorboards out in the attic, and they got the rat. But he was stuck there. He'd gotten in with food and ate too much and couldn't come back out.
That'd be a Christmas he wouldn't forget.
Yeah, so we never kept the garbage in the back porch anymore.
Ralph, you must have had lots of family at Christmas when you were growing up.
Growing up,
How many siblings do you have?
I have 7. Or
Wow.
had
Yeah,
seven.
so that's a few.
We were
Yeah.
in total.
Yeah.
And we had family around, 2 uncles and aunts and cousins, lots of cousins. I can't recall, in the early days, back in the 50s, I can't recall so much visiting of the older folks, like the parents, but we would always get to go and visit our favorite cousins
Right.
for an afternoon or an evening. Or they'd come and visit us, like we were always back and forth like that.
That's the joys of living in a small community where you know everybody and your family's all around. Whereas when I grew up, we lived here and family was in Alberta or somewhere else. We didn't have a lot of close relatives around us, so
Yeah, I was in the same situation, but people used to come and visit for Christmas. I mean, maybe not the same people and not every year.
yeah.
But both my parents, their families were in Nova Scotia, and so there was always one set of grandparents, at Christmas. And then the really great years is when the cousins showed up, like that was always, because we could get up to all kinds of trouble at Christmas, right?
And we did.
and then we had targeted adults, like living in the house, right? That had to put up with our shenanigans, and so that was always fun.
Yeah.
Did you get up to... You guys were all really well behaved at Christmas, or did you?
Well, no.
No?
I remember, like, going through the closets looking for stuff, and I found this great big book that of stories of, I guess they were like Grimm's fairy tales and stuff like that. Huge book, and I thought it was for my sister. It was for me. And another time, a big doll, and I thought that was for my sister, but it was for me. So, yeah, I was
snooping for
bad,
things,
snooping.
Snooping.
I was a bad snooper.
Was that the biggest form of bad behavior?
I was a perfect child.
Oh yeah. You don't want to confess anything, right? You can tell us
Ask
later,
your sisters
Claire.
about that.
But I do kind of getting away a little bit from that story. I do remember, developing friendships when I came back to the island here. We were away for a few years, came back married, and had developed some friendships and so on. But before Christmas, I remember Hubert was a hunter. He hunted, and he was a fisherman as well. But they would get together, a group of men, and they would maybe 3 or 4 in a car or something, and they would go off, and they would go hunting for rabbits. And they would bring the rabbits home, and they would, it was all in preparation for Christmas. It would happen in November or sometimes in December, And it seemed to me the friendship part. Then you'd share the meal together, you'd cook it up and you'd share it together. I remember those kind of important moments, in my early life, where it's precious.
Yeah. So and part of the routine of Christmas.
Yes.
Yeah. Every year.
Every
it was
year
sort of-
they would go hunting for rabbits, and they would clean them, put them in the fridge, and then you'd cook them up. You'd make the rabbit stew or the rabbit pie. And that was, everybody liked it. Well, the ones at least that were hunters and their families and so on, you'd gather. Yeah. That was just a little side to the good memories,
Well,
of
Christmas
friendships.
isn't just the day or the evening, right? I mean, it's usually a whole pile of things leading up, and then there's a kind of period of exhausted bit of relaxation before New Year's, right? But I mean, one tends to think of, I noticed when I moved here, maybe not so much from the stories I heard from my grandparents or as you tell it too, Elaine and Claire. I mean, people used to wait to put their Christmas decorations up, didn't necessarily put them up until quite late. But moving back here like 9 years ago, I noticed this island really embraces Christmas.
Yes.
Right? I mean, it's kind of amazing. What do you think that's all about? I mean, it has to go back a way, right? It's something about
It's
it.
a way of hanging on to your memories.
Yeah.
Like I can remember the first thing I wanted for my kids was to give them some of the traditions we had. The donuts.
The donuts, yes.
Tell us
Oh
about
my
the donuts.
goodness, the donuts.
Well, my grandmother's recipe, my mother made them when I was a child, when mine was in grade 1. So that's like 35 years ago. I decided that through our religion program, wanted to do something that would make her go to the neighbors to give them something instead of going to ask them for something. Because that was one of the things my mother used to say, no. We were never permitted to go selling tickets or anything like that. That's been something that I've even had a hard time with. In fact, a few fights over with the principal of the school. Take those books, take all 5 of them back, and don't send them to my house again. He says, what do you want me to do with them? And I leaned over and I said, see that? Put them in it. If you want to raise money for the school, let's come up with better ideas.
But
You're just robbing people.
But giving out donuts at
But
Christmas
us
became a
at
thing.
Christmas time, I started, and it was just with the neighbors. And I can remember the first house she went into, and she goes over with the bag of donuts, and she gave it to my aunt, who was in the beginning stages of Alzheimer's. And she looked at it and she says, what's that for? It's for you, she said. Well, what do you want for it? Nothing.
Aw.
And she says, you don't want anything? Well, who's going to make any money like that? And it's like, she says, it's not to make money, it's just to make somebody happy. And she just looked at her in complete shock, and she says, well, it worked.
Yeah, nice.
It's like, and I've been doing it ever since, and now I've got 2 of mine doing it. Except I don't know how to get out of making the donuts.
Yeah.
We're up to 52 dozen, and I
Oh
still
my
got to
gosh.
make more.
Well, Christmas
Wow.
is about giving, right? I mean, it's giving food,
yeah.
it's providing food, providing drink, providing merriment, good times, providing gifts. I mean, your households must have been no different than mine. I mean, people often went to great lengths to disguise the gift, the very special gift they bought for somebody. Did you ever buy a really special gift, Ralph, and struggle to keep it top secret? Or had somebody in your family do the same?
Oh, my mom was the gift buyer in the family. 'Cause she was in charge of all that.
She was, yeah.
And she had her hidey holes that we weren't allowed to go near.
There was like Fort Knox in a certain area of the house.
Usually their bedroom.
Well, it's-
We didn't go in there. We had no reason to go in there, so stay the heck out.
Yeah, it's interesting that we keep all of that so secret, right? Until, because it ruins it, right, Dede, when you
It
find out?
does, yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Christmas is about the gifts, but it's also the element of surprise.
Yes, one surprise I had one Christmas, as an adult, my mother had come from BC to visit us, and it must have been in the summertime. I don't know, Elaine, you were in on this one.
My
Anyway.
memory isn't good about everything.
Elaine's sister Imelda
Okay.
does carvings, or did carvings. I'm not sure if she's doing them anymore. And I was telling my mum about the carvings and showed her at Elaine's. We'd gone for tea and showed her the carvings and that. And she went off, went home, and Elaine, you're the one that brought the gift to me.
She contacted us.
Well, my mum got in touch with Elaine or left her address, got her address while she was here, whatever, and she bought me a
Oh,
carving, a Santa carving from Imelda, and Elaine delivered it at Christmas time, and that was very special.
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
And that's like a big memory for me. Having my mum do that from BC was great.
Well, it's kind of exciting, those Christmas gifts that you get when you realize that somebody's been paying attention to you.
Yeah.
And it, you know, it may have been something you said 6 months before, but somebody remembered, right? And yeah, so there's that element in the gift, not just being a gift, but being a token of you know, how significant you are in somebody's life, that they're
Exactly.
paying attention.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I got a Christmas gift about 60 years after I was born. It's a wind-up mobile, and it was bought at the LeBrun's Toyland upstairs the year I was born,
Oh, wow.
1950.
Yeah.
It's 73 years old, and it's been in the house and displayed at Christmas and wound up for the kids to watch. It's been around for 73 years.
Oh,
And
nice.
it's all plastic. It probably came from Japan or Taiwan, maybe. Mm-hmm. But it's
And how did you come by it? How did?
well. I was staying with my dad, and he was in his declining years. He needed somebody to stay with him, so I spent 5 years with him. When I came back from Halifax, and I was decorating with all his decorations from over the years, and I was putting the mobile up, and he says to me, you know, he said, we bought that the year you were born. I was born in July, they bought it in November, December. He says, you might as well have that.
Aw,
Mm-hmm.
So I still have it.
that's
Oh,
lovely.
nice. Yeah.
I had to rebuild it a few times with
Yeah.
the wheels on. But that's one of my fondest memories, really, and that only happened in the 90s.
Yeah.
They gave it to me.
Wow.
And I had never heard the story of where they bought it. It just showed up. And
It was just part of Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was. But every year, and I made sure every year since, even now I'll hang it up at Rogers. After they do all the decorating, I'll hang it up there. And I've even got a video of it.
Wow.
Yeah, well, we must all have some items from our childhoods from Christmas, right? When I put my tree up every year, I I have a couple of ornaments that my mother got from when she was a kid. So they're old, and I'm very careful with them, and I love to see them on the tree because they're sort of a constant, right? They've been there ever since I was a kid. In fact, since before I was a kid, they've been hanging on Christmas trees. Do you all have? You must have
I've
items
gone a
like
little
that.
obsessive on that one. I collect other people's, and my trees, I can go back, even my cups, my china cups.
Yeah.
I can go back and I can say, I got that one at a yard sale. It's belonged to so-and-so.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And like last year, one of his aunts died, and she had given us about 5 or 6 years ago 2 boxes, and it just amazed me because these are old as the hills, and she still had them in the perfect box. And she gave me 2, and I looked at her and I said, would you mind if I give one of them to out-in-law's brother? And she knew them, and she says, oh, I'd be thrilled. She says, I'm so happy you would do that. So she has them in Newfoundland, and I have them here, and we put those in the tree every year. But that's what my trees are. I've got a tree that's stuff the kids made. The crafts we did together and put on that tree. And then I've got one, and the tree either has to get bigger or I have to start putting them on a second one now because the glass ornaments. But my kids are amazed by them. And the little 3-year-old came over one day. She says, Nanny, you put a new decoration on there since I was here. I said, yeah, which one? She went right over to it and picked it out. And I said, oh my God, she actually is noticing.
Yeah.
But I think that's where my obsession with Christmas, it's an obsession.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's
I'll
a good
admit
one.
to it.
There
Oh,
are
I'll
worse
never say it's a bad one.
There are worse things to be obsessed
Yes.
with.
No, but like, I can't walk past a nativity set that's been put in a secondhand store. And it's getting pretty bad. I've got 2 cabinets that I intend to get rid of all the glassware from the weddings and put just nativities in.
Right.
Because I want them to be there all the time. I want my grandkids to grow up around them.
Yeah.
And
Well,
when
and there is something sad about seeing, I find, for me, seeing certain Christmas items at secondhand stores. Because you know that at one time they were very special. I mean, we've just been talking about how special Christmas is. And part of it is associated with various items, right? They're mobile or, we had the stupidest looking Santa Claus at the top of our tree when I was a kid. But when my mother passed away and, we were sort of distributing various things that people wanted in the family, the Santa Claus didn't work. And it had to be disposed. Like, it was beyond saving. And
nothing's beyond saving.
It really was. And I mean, I was surprised how much that affected me, because it was, my father probably picked it up at Woolworths for like, it was never designed to last forever.
That's the thing with Christmas.
Yeah.
It's not what you paid for something. It's not how big the gift was. It's where it came from.
Yes.
And how you felt when you got it. And those are the things I remember. I remember Mom, we never had a lot growing up, and there was 6 of us, and, but I can remember saving our gold bond stamps. And she never wanted to get anything for herself with them. It was always Christmas.
What kind of stamps?
Gold bond stamps.
Gold
The
bonds.
The
IGA.
IGA used to give those
Well,
when you
and
buy your groceries,
in Montreal where I grew, they were pinky stamps, and they were different. The first loyalty programs in North America were usually stamp programs, right?
Don't know anything about those.
But she was getting me a walking doll with her gold bond stamps for Christmas, and she had it saved and she had it ordered, but it didn't come in. And I took sick, and I can remember in the back of my head Dr. Winter saying, if there's anything that she really, really wants, give it to her now. See if it'll bring her out of the coma. And I don't know if it was a coma. I was aware of what was going on. I was 11 years old, and that's what I wanted. So she went down and she talked to Harold LeBrun, and Harold LeBrun says, Lorna, go take the one that's there, but I don't have the money to pay for it. He says, between you and Willard, you've paid for it. Take it.
Aw.
And I still have that doll.
Oh,
Grant
nice.
you, she has to have a wig now because I broke her hair stealing the hairspray. And she's got a few dried up limbs because the plastic didn't last as well. But she's
Yeah.
had more than one cast put on. Duct
Yeah.
tape is great.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
she's still there.
Oh, that's great. What about wrapping? I mean, I was blessed with a father who was determined to figure out what every present was. And so as soon as any present got, he'd shake it, he'd sniff it, feel it, and then he proclaimed to the whole world what it was.
What it
And he was
was.
often right. And so I had a sister-in-law and I, we would get all the gifts that were meant for him, and we would be commissioned with. We took one year, I don't even remember what he got. But we took a magazine stand and with lots of clever wrapping paper and a plant holder. Anyway, we made it into a pig, right, with 4 legs, a little tail, and the nose was geez, if he didn't guess what it was anyway, well, I think he had other clues, it wasn't. But were there traditions of wrap? We were forced into this situation. We were not gifted wrappers by nature, but I do know some families who really get quite clever with, not necessarily wrapping paper, but with
Yeah,
things.
we weren't allowed to waste wrapping paper, but yeah, we did. We used newspaper.
Yeah.
There was always lots of newspaper around. And a little bit of anything or everything we could find to decorate it.
Mm-hmm.
So much so that one Christmas, before Christmas, all of the things we'd gotten got put in the garbage. Because
Because they were all
newspaper.
paper.
Up newspaper. We hadn't decorated it yet.
Oh,
And I can
no.
remember how disappointed we were,
Just
but
a bit.
it was too late.
Wow.
I think my biggest memory of Christmas is the food, the table that my mom, the spread that she would put out.
Yeah.
Like, there was always little dishes with the olives, the different kinds of pickles and olives and stuff like that. And she used to make, she called them pigs in a blanket, which was, the sausage with the pastry on it. And her Christmas cakes and the Christmas pudding. And we always had shrimp cocktail was the first thing to come out.
With the iceberg lettuce?
With the iceberg lettuce
Yeah.
and the shrimp cocktail sauce and the shrimp and hanging over the side. Yeah, and that, like, the feast
Yeah.
of Christmas, it was like, that's something that really stuck in my head, was all the
Like
goodies at Christmas.
Telling my kids, I said, we never had grapes any other time of the year but at Christmas.
At Christmas. Well, and
We
that's the
never
other
had
thing, your
the clementines.
stockings.
We
Yeah,
never knew what they were.
like your Christmas stockings, that they had like the
Yeah, you
clementine,
had
the
food.
clementines and the
Orange.
Yes,
and
Yeah.
the,
right
yeah,
in the toe,
and the
right?
nates, the nuts and the clementines, and that was
So
it.
those were things that
Yeah.
you got at Christmas and not through the year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, my
And
mother.
that big lump of coal, of course, that my grandpa used to put in every sock.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, he was really good, and then he was the observer, and we'd say, coal. He said, yeah, you were naughty. That's it, you got coal. But my dad, my dad and my mom, they worked really very hard around the holidays, and the idea of going out and getting a tree and bringing it home, and it was, I don't think the power came on in Little Anse until 1952, and I don't remember lights on our tree. And I hardly remember any fancy ornaments other than stringing up, making the strings with,
Cranberries?
the rose hips that you kind of
Oh,
gather.
Oh, okay.
We used to kind of put a big needle through them, and and you'd make a lot of little paper ornaments and things like that, But there was nothing really fancy like there is today to put on the tree, other than what you created from yourself. But my father, we had a pond in front of our house, and at Christmases were not Christmases like today. I mean, the snow arrived in mid-November, and by Christmas you were solid ice. You know, you were into full winter, and so getting a sleigh or a pair of skates, I mean, that was like the ultimate, because then you could be out, because we spend all of our time outdoors.
Yeah.
And big cardboards to toboggan, but the skates, oh my God, one year I remember getting a pair of skates, and I went on that ice, and I could dream of being, you know, like the best skater in the world. And I learned how to skate backwards, and I learned how to twirl, and that was such a freedom, you know. It was so beautiful, you know. I remember those were the days, and the idea that I would have gotten a pair of skates, that was like a big deal.
Yeah.
A big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my dad would make us some what they called with the U skates. Once your skates were, you had outgrown your skates, or the boots were damaged in some way, he would take the blades, and he would make what they called in Little Anse a traîneau patin. I don't know, it was just made with a board, and they'd nail the the blades onto the board.
Oh, okay.
And then there was a hill where the pond was at. Oh my God! You'd go down there, and it all happened, you know. Seems to me after Christmas in January, where you could be out there, and it was wonderful. Yeah, just
So
wonderful.
you used to
But
go
he
down,
would do
you
that
could
for
stand on the
us.
board with the blade underneath and go down the hill?
Yeah, yeah.
Like a
It was
snowboard.
like a
It's like
maybe-
snowboarding.
Huh?
Like snowboarding.
Just enough to hold on to the sides there,
Yeah.
and he'd have the blades nailed or screwed onto the
Yeah.
boards. And my God,
Like
you'd
a
go
sled,
down that
yeah.
hill. Whoa. Yeah, you
Wow.
had to hold on tight, but
And you didn't
quite
have
an experience.
helmets,
no
and
helmets.
all the protective gear.
There were barbed wire fences everywhere, so
Yeah.
we found them too
But-
often.
But the parents were creative.
Yeah.
They had no money, but boy, they were creative.
We used to always hope we grew up in Montreal, but the great hope was that somebody in the neighborhood would get a new toboggan. And we didn't get a new toboggan every year. You know, I think we got a toboggan once, but then, then we got bigger, so we
Yeah.
hoped the kids next door at least got a bigger toboggan, right?
Yes.
So that was for us always a big thing. Christmas Day was, and I think it was to get rid of us kids. They'd kick us out of the house and send us tobogganing at the hill at the end of the street.
The parents were probably exhausted,
Yeah, yeah.
so you had to go out.
But winter, if you lived in a place where winter was a thing,
Yeah, when it came, it stayed.
it stayed.
Our kids
Came,
don't know that.
But
Yes.
Christmas was so part of it was getting things for winter,
Yes.
like skates or
Yeah.
toboggans or sleds, or just even I remember a big tradition in our house was the great aunts used to make you mitts. Right, and sometimes the thumbs would come out, but nonetheless, it was always very exciting to see the mitts that you got for Christmas. I used to like to get mitts that had strings so that you didn't lose them. The went, and I liked them so much. Martha Nettleton made me a pair a couple of years ago.
We would get, I don't know if you remember the old-fashioned flannel underwear and the bloomer type.
Oh yeah,
They were flannel, and they were nice and soft, and they would go to your knees. And my God, you'd get a pair of those for the winter, and you'd get some winter gear. But those flannelette underwear, oh my, they were so warm. 'Cause it was pretty nippy. We didn't have an air forced furnace. We had a stove downstairs with a bit of a grate like what you see there, and what would go upstairs is what you had. So you'd get up in the morning, was frost on the windows. You couldn't see outdoors. It was that cold. My dad used to get up around 4 o'clock to fire up the wood stove so he'd get us ready for school in the morning. But the house was fairly cold. It was like, oh.
That's why we're healthier than they are today.
Probably.
Maybe.
Probably, but we
yeah,
didn't
flannel
complain.
underwear
We
would be
didn't
a thing.
complain. We had, like you say, the woolly mitts, the woolly socks. they really worked hard to kind of get us prepared for winter wear, It wasn't, but my mom used to, I think the catalogs came along around that time, probably in the 70s.
Oh,
Do you guys
earlier than-
remember?
Earlier
Yeah,
than that.
yeah, she would often look, and they had, Sears, I believe, had like a special catalog that would come out with toys and
The
Or
wish book.
Christmas, yeah.
the wish book,
Yeah.
the winter, the Christmas wish book, but then you had a year-round book. And I think my mother might have gotten, I don't know, maybe $6 a month for every child with the child credit.
The baby bonus,
The
yeah.
baby bonus, and the baby bonus would sometimes be used, like, to make purchases and that. But it's not hundreds, I think it was
No.
like pennies.
Yeah.
Pennies.
Do you remember as a kid, Ralph, looking through the Christmas wish books, the various Christmas catalogs?
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dreaming about having this or that?
Yes. Yes.
What was the one thing was there something you really wanted for Christmas one year and you actually got?
There was something I wanted from my earliest memories, looking through the catalogue. I wanted a sports car. And I didn't want a toy sports car. I wanted
You wanted
The real thing.
It took me till 1971 to get my first one.
Yeah. Was there something you really wanted, Dede, that you actually got?
I don't have any memories of that at all.
Yeah. It's interesting to think about, because when you're kids, sometimes you do want something really ardently, and your parents manage to A, remember, B, find it in the store, or C, they're able to pay for it, and it makes its way under the tree. And then here we are, we don't remember it. But at the time, our lives depended upon it,
I tell my kids now, I said, you know what, those are fad things that they want there. And by the end of January, they'll have forgotten about them.
Many things, yeah.
And you'll be putting them in the dump.
Yeah.
I said, stop stressing out and just get them something that's from your heart. Some of them are doing it, some of them aren't.
I remember we used to always get a game at Christmas for the family.
Yes.
Like that, so whether it was Sorry one year or, Monopoly was.
Snakes and Ladders.
Yeah.
Checkers,
But
Chinese
And
checkers.
that
I think
was
the
popular.
best game we got was Crokinole. And we got that when we were young. And so there was always a big Crokinole game. It was never scheduled, but you could count on somebody at Christmas time saying, it's time to play Crokinole, right? And then the tournament would be on.
I remember getting some beads for Christmas out of that wish book, and I actually got it from Santa. And they were the beads that you string to make necklaces.
Yeah.
And you could, there were so many different colors and varieties, and so you could do a whole lot, and you could dress yourself up, you'd find clothes in somebody's closet, maybe your older sisters, and you'd dress up and you'd put all these beads on and put lipstick on that you'd take from someone else, and you'd play, so I remember getting beads, and that was like quite precious.
Yeah.
In my younger years,
I had a memory of having, it was like a doll's head or
Oh yes,
a head
with the hair.
with the hair
Yes.
and
Yes.
the comb and brush, and you
Okay.
could put
Yes.
rollers in her hair and stuff like that.
Wow.
That's something I do remember
Yeah.
getting
Yes.
as a gift one time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I do
Not
remember
that
my
it helped
brother. I was very jealous of my brother one year because I really wanted. I remember when there was a 007 spy briefcase.
Oh.
It was totally cool. Like you could shoot bullets out of one end, and there was a little
wow.
camera, and it was like all very cool. And I wanted it for Christmas. And we came down that morning, and I could see a box that was the right size. I was convinced it was for me. My brother got it.
Oh.
It was 007.
And so the whole year I had to watch him play 007. So somebody got their wires crossed. I'm convinced.
Blame it on Santa.
Blame it on
Yeah.
somebody. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we had a great aunt, my mother's aunt. My mother was born in the States, and her aunt lived in Washington, D.C. And when we were growing up, we were dirt poor. We we farmed and we got firewood and pulpwood and everything to get by. And this Aunt Gertie, my great aunt, she used to send big parcels through the mail, great big boxes like that, full of clothes, and all down the sides and in between the layers she'd have toys.
Wow.
So those boxes used to arrive in November, and we used to get friction cars, the ones that you'd wind up. And my brother Roger and I, we'd take the body off the car, and we'd use the chassis and the little friction engine, and we'd take Sears catalogue or Eaton's catalogue, and we'd take the pages and run it through the teeth on that friction wheel.
Yeah.
It was like a little saw. So we had a table saw.
Oh,
We used to
wow.
run them through and make sacks of them, and then haul them around on our little toy trucks when we were just,
Oh, wow.
That's
7, 8
incredibly
years old.
clever. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
we'd play with that for hours.
Yeah.
For hours. That's about the only time we never fought.
Yeah, nothing
Make
like
your
a
own
common
fun.
project.
You
Yeah.
didn't need to be entertained. There was no really entertainment.
Yeah.
There was no games or what you have for computers and all of these games now. You just simply had to create.
Stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always raised my kids. I would tell them that boredom was a moral failing. But yeah, Christmas but Christmas is it is a rather magical time when and it is full of sentimentality, right? I mean, I find it difficult to go to midnight mass these days because when they sing "O Come All Ye Faithful," I remember my grandfather and I trying to bark that out in Latin. And he didn't have the greatest singing voice, right? So I think the entire congregation kind of resented us, but it was a wonderful memory, right, of the of the two of us. So I miss him. Like it's a memory that brings back. There are people we miss at Christmas, right?
Yeah. Today you kind of see like people posting that pictures and photos of family activities that they're doing, and it's saying we're making memories, we're creating memories, right? But really, that's what it's all about. What they're creating today is like
Yes.
what they will remember, the highlights, maybe positive or whatever. It gets stored, and that's really the only thing.
Well, it is kind of amazing, to think that the humble Christmas tree is something that goes back more than 1,000 years. People have been hauling trees into their houses in the middle of winter.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also the tradition of a big feast, in
And
the
the
middle of the
feast.
darkest time of the year,
Yes.
right? And not simply a Christian tradition, right? But
No.
a tradition that goes back a long way. This has been really fun. It's been interesting.
Not often. It's not often you kind of go back in time. It's good to go back in time. Kind of brings out, you kind of relive
Yes.
your
Yeah.
kind of your life going back through that window. Yeah, so it's kind of nice.
It's
Well,
a constant day, right? Like it's so it does invite. It's easier to remember things around Christmas because so many other things stay the same, right? It's yeah. Oh well, thank you so much.
And thank you, Anne,
for doing
for
this.
having us.
It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah.